Was the Border Patrol justified in tear-gassing migrants at the border?
Each week, The Score from Bearing Drift brings listeners news, reviews, and interviews.
To learn more, visit bearingdrift.com.
Hello and welcome to The Square Circle. I'm your host, Adam Byrne. Joining us today are Stephenie Foster of Smash Strategies, conservative commentator Valerie Greenfeld, and Rachel Tripp of Young Voices. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
This week witnessed a spectacle at the US-Mexico border in Tijuana as Border Patrol agents used tear gas to disperse a crowd of migrants. Here's the story from NBC News.
Mexico now says about 100 of the people who rushed a major border crossing on Sunday have been arrested and deported. According to U.S. officials, they were mostly adult men.
Are you comfortable tear gassing children like what we saw?
They're not, as you know, they're not. They had to use because they were being rushed by some very tough people.
So, Rachel Tripp, was the tear gassing of these migrants justified in your opinion?
You know, I do believe that it was. I think that since this caravan took shape several weeks ago, there has been a very singular message which has said very clearly that this caravan is not wanted, that they will not get through the border, that there will not be any progress made were they to get to the United States border. And once they did, there was a shock around what I see as a necessary de-escalation of what could have been a very violent physical issue.
But most of these migrants were unarmed, weren't they? Including women and children, some that were barefoot.
I think that it's shameful of the caravan to push forward women and children to the front. It's the same as when other enemies of the United States or other people around the world use child soldiers or use children as human shields. It is a very unfortunate optic, but they didn't have to do that.
So it's an optic, and I'm not sure that migrants can be compared to child soldiers.
I think that pushing children and women forward to what is obviously going to be a hostile greeting and what has said by many times by the administration and by Border Patrol that they could expect that hostile greeting is knowingly putting children in danger.
Okay, Stephenie Foster, should they have received a hostile greeting?
Well, I disagree. I mean, respectfully, I think that these are people, despite the numbers that the president puts forward right now, it sounds like in Tijuana there are about 8,000 people at the border. They're, by the way, keeping their own lists of who is in lists for asylum so that as they get called up by the border, the immigration people, that they can actually do it in an orderly way. So they are kind of organizing themselves. I mean, I don't think that these people are not seeking to cross the border illegally. They are here to seek asylum. They have a legal right to seek asylum. So to me, I mean, if there were people who were violent and who were causing disorder, there are better ways to stop them than tear gas, which we don't use in war. We could use pepper ball munitions, which are much more sort of targeted and get at people who are actually violent. So I think it's an overreaction. Again, we all would agree, I think, on this panel that our immigration and asylum system needs to be probably overhauled and thought through. But I do think this was an overreaction and there was no need to use tear gas.
Was it an overreaction, Valerie Greenfeld?
I don't think so. I agree with what you said. The problem is that when you use tear gas, I agree, it's not so great for those that are receiving it, but they shouldn't be there and they shouldn't be crowding, trying to get over our border. Secondly, it's a sign to the other people that may want to come in the future that it's a bad idea. You know, if you continue to welcome them, then more people will come. If we make it clear that you're not going to get over the border and nothing good is going to come of this, then maybe they'll stay where they are and try to get asylum, you know, in Mexico or somewhere before they get to Mexico and stop. Also, I wanted to say that we don't know who these people are. I've heard that 90% of them are men, you know, males that are not children, mothers and children, and this kind of thing. We don't know who they are. Are they terrorists? Are they, you know, dangerous? You know, they could be anybody, and we just don't know.
But Stephenie Foster makes the point that it is legal to come to the US to claim asylum. So why not let the migrants come, claim asylum? They have that background check and that vetting process. Mm-hmm. And
well,
then
I don't have
go
a
with their
problem
claims
with that, but let's do it. Let's do it properly. We don't have to do it by pushing the border and by coming as groups of 9,000 people. I mean, we can't process 9,000 people at the same time. There is a process to do it, and they don't have to be pushing the border to do it at that time. There are plenty of ways to do it properly.
Well, you actually have the right to go to a country and claim asylum in that country. So there are a lot of people. Smaller numbers, like 100 people, can be processed today. Mm-hmm. The migrants themselves, the asylum seekers, are keeping a list so that they are being fair to each other about who gets called next to go because apparently our government can't
We can't process
do that.
9,000 people.
Well,
at
so
one
we
time.
can't keep a list. I mean, we certainly should be able to keep a list so that, we get a ticket at the grocery store for 1, 2, whatever the number is. But people do have that right, and I think we confuse a lot of things in this debate. I think it's very important, though, as people are seeking asylum, they have the right to do that, and they have the right to do it by coming to a country and seeking it at that country's border.
Rachel?
If physical safety were the main primary goal, I do think that they've walked through many countries where they would have found more immediate physical safety. If their goal was truly that they couldn't sleep in their beds at night without fearing physical harm, they have walked through many territories, many countries where they could have got that safety or sought that assistance. I think the fact that they've walked up to the border, assuming that they're going to be greeted peacefully, despite the fact that we've warned them not to, is really arrogant on their part.
Is Mexico as safe as the United States?
If they are looking for immediate physical safety, it's not a comparison of which is the safest, it is safety.
Okay.
Do they
so
have
there's no part
safety?
of you that feels that people who walk thousands of miles might be really desperate to get here?
I think that there is a role for empathy when we are considering the way that we approach our immigration status. I think that if we allow people to walk across borders, to walk up to our border and seek asylum, then we are sending a dangerous message to people who are not necessarily people that we want to grant asylum or entry to.
But you don't have to grant them
Agreed.
asylum. If they come and they say, and you realize they're not in danger, they're here perhaps primarily for economic reasons, then the country has a right to turn them away at that point.
We have a system for vetting and including or discluding different kinds of people who want to come into the United States. And if we allow people to just walk up to the border and demand asylum, then it is sort of going against our own system of law, which would be hypocritical and also very contrary to the message that we've been very consistent about giving.
And
But
when
that
we have
actually is the
9,000
law.
people.
That's international law, and people have done that for a very long time. So you may disagree with that law, but that is the system we have, and people have, knowing this from working in the State Department, people are vetted for, whether they're for asylum seekers or refugees in pretty intense ways. So I think the system is set up, and it's not perfect, but to find out if people who are coming to our border, again, either as refugees or asylum seekers, if they're the kind of people we want to leave and, let into the United States, we certainly need to be careful about that. But that is their legal right, and it's not as though it just started a couple of days ago. This has been a system that's been in place for a fairly long time.
But are they so unsafe in Mexico? They are in a country that is okay for them to, if they're escaping some country where they're being persecuted, they have at least gone into one where they're safe. And to say, well, we have to go another one, that's no longer asylum. They are in a place where they're not, about to be murdered or put in jail or something. So
I'm just curious, do either of you accept that migrants are play a critical role in the US economy, in agriculture and other types of jobs?
Sure.
That we actually need these people to come to America?
I'm happy to have anybody in America and be pro-immigration if it's done legally.
Like coming to the border and claiming asylum?
This is not legal what's going on here. They're
It
all
is
trying
legal.
to push over, they're trying to push in, and it's not an orderly manner where you stand in line like you say and you get your number and you put your information in. That's no problem, but that's not what's going on here.
This week, I'm Adam Byrne. Thank you for watching The Square Circle. We'll see you next week.